Hey guys, I'm Kat from the Motorhome travel website Wandering Bird, where we share tips and tricks for touring in the UK and Europe by motorhome or camper. Now today I'm going to be sharing some opinions, both our own and from other people inside our Facebook group, on whether a motorhome or a campervan is better and why. Now I know this is a question that's hotly contested and a lot of people who go to buy a vehicle are kind of confused over which one they should go for and the reasons why. So I'm hoping that by sharing some of our insights and some of the people in our group's insights, that you might find that a little bit more useful and you can start getting your head around the kind of vehicle that would work for you. If you are new to the channel, hi, welcome, nice to have you here. By all means, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. And if you'd like to get more motorhome tips for the UK and Europe, hit subscribe and the little bell and you'll find out when our next video is out. If you are looking to buy a motorhome or a campervan, we've got a free checklist, the link is below, and you can download that, print it off, take it with you when you go to have a look at vehicles, and it gives you a list of things to look for, check, and you can make sure that hopefully you see everything that you need to see before you buy a vehicle, and you can make sure that you have a good one. Right, let's start discussing whether you should get a motorhome or a camper.
Good time, we're chasing every moment, all the good nights. We're always looking out and it's a good life. We go around the world for a show, and it's a good time. We're chasing every moment, all the good nights. We're always looking out and it's a good life. No, we are never letting this go.
Okay, let's talk about one of the most burning questions when you're coming to buy a van. Do you go for a motorhome or do you go for a campervan? And I know that there are plenty of other options like caravans or RVs or motor vans, as some people call them. And you can of course then do your own conversion or you can buy something off the shelf. But I am just going to try and keep this as simple as I possibly can and split it into general motorhome or general campervan. And if you're not sure what the difference is between them, I'm kind of looking at it as a van-shaped vehicle with the chassis of a normal transit van or a VW, or anything that is then a motorhome. So even if it's under 6 meters, it will have the more motorhome shape to it. And I hope that makes sense, because you can get vans that are bigger than 6 meters and you can get motorhomes that are under 6 meters. So it's not always delineated, big word, I hope you're impressed. It's not always delineated exactly on the size or the height, although of course that does come into it. So I'm going van shape or I'm going motorhome shape. And again, you're going to really love this, but there is no right answer. There's just not. It's going to come down to what's best for you, what's best for your family, what's best for your budget, what's best for your storage limitations. All of these things are going to affect your choice, and that's why I can't say motorhomes are better than campervans or vice versa, because that's not always the case. Obviously we have a motorhome and we've chosen a motorhome for specific reasons, and I will go into those so that you can understand our thought process. But to make things a little bit fairer, I actually put this as a question in our Facebook group, and you're welcome to join that, the link is below. And I wanted to get people's opinions on whether they went for motorhome or campervan, and also why. I wanted to understand why some people chose one over the other. So I'm just going to break them down a little bit and share some of the insights and reasons that people went for one over the other. Hopefully that will make things a little bit clearer for you, or at least give you something to think about when you're trying to make your own decisions. So let's dive into this. First of all, motorhomes. Let's look at the pros and cons of a motorhome, and I'll share our story why we picked one. For a start, one of the biggest reasons that people go for motorhome over a campervan is space and comfort that also comes with that space, and that's certainly the case for us. When we started off our motorhome life, there was 3 of us. We had us and we had our teenage daughter, and we knew that we wanted to work from the road. We knew that we wanted to take our motorbikes and all the associated gear that went with. We knew that we wanted to spend quite a lot of time, so we needed quite a lot of storage space. And we knew that we wanted to be comfortable. We didn't want to feel on top of each other. And so for that reason, with a camper van, and I know there are plenty of families with younger kids who go in the pop top, or they have the roll-out bed. There are lots of other options with a camper van. I'm not saying if you have kids you can't have one, but for us, we definitely wanted that space. We wanted a fixed bed, which isn't that easy in a camper van, although I have seen some that have got them, and we really, really nearly bought one the other year instead of our downsized motorhome. But all of those are the main reason that we based our decision on getting a motorhome. So we wanted the space, we wanted fixed beds, we wanted the extra seatbelts, and of course some camper vans do have more than 2 seatbelts. We wanted a separate dinette area to the bed. We wanted, initially, what we thought we wanted was an overcab or a drop-down bed over the cab and then a fixed bed at the rear. That layout didn't work quite so well for us as we thought it would, but you need a motorhome for that, not a camper van. Another reason that people generally go for motorhomes straight away from campers is the slightly bigger facilities, for example your washroom or your bathroom. You will generally get a bigger bathroom in a motorhome. Even a small motorhome will have a bigger bathroom with better headroom than you will get in a camper van. And again, sweeping generalisation, I'm sure someone somewhere can find a camper van with a larger bathroom than one in a particular motorhome. But generally, you will get a bigger bathroom in a motorhome than you will in a camper. And that was something that was really important for us. I wanted to make sure that we had a toilet and a shower that was easy to use, that we were happy to use on board, that we took around with us. And that was something that was personal to us. In the Facebook group, a couple of other things that people have mentioned, and forgive me while I look at my screen, are they don't want to have to bend and crawl around small spaces, which I get. In a camper van, you generally have to store things in slightly more out of the way places, and that's difficult for some people. Some people don't want to bend and crawl around in the small spaces, and that was a reason they picked. Another one is, of course, your payload. Now, you will generally get, again, sweeping generalisation, but generally you will get a better payload with a motorhome than you will with a camper van. And if you're going to be on it a lot, if you're going to have full time, if you're going to be travelling long term like we do, that payload is quite important because you're going to be taking a lot more stuff with you. If you're going to be using it just for the day or for a quick weekend, then that's not so important. Which is why this isn't so clear cut. What's best for us possibly isn't right for you. So let's get on to the cons of motorhomes, and one of the biggest cons that applies to pretty much everything on motorhoming is the price. Generally speaking, a motorhome is going to cost you more than a camper van. Now, both motorhomes and camper vans hold their money quite well. At the moment, you'll actually make a profit on it. I know somebody who bought a van at the start of this pandemic, and then they sold it for actually more money a few months later. So they did well on that. But generally, they both hold their money fairly well. But the initial outlay for a motorhome is generally more than a camper van. Another thing, of course, is motorhomes are higher for definite, taller if you prefer. And they also generally wider, and they are usually longer, which makes parking them not as easy. So many people go for a camper van because they want to be able to fit into a normal parking space, which is fantastic. Most motorhomes can't. Even if they are short enough, the width is generally wider than one parking space. So that's something to bear in mind, absolutely, that you might find parking it more difficult. And another thing as well is the height barriers. If you're going to a car park that has a height barrier on it, most motorhomes can't get under a 6'6" height barrier, whatever the standard is, whereas most camper vans can. Another thing to think about are the practicalities of owning a larger vehicle like a motorhome. So you've got to think about driving restrictions if you get one that's over 3.5 tonnes. If you have received your driving licence after 1997, then you are possibly not able to drive a vehicle over 3.5 tonnes without extra tests. So that's something to think about. Also, things like insurance is normally more on a motorhome, and storage as well. That's something to think about. Many people go for a camper van because they could store it on their driveway, whereas with a motorhome, whether it's too long or too wide, they often have more difficulty storing it, so they need to pay for extra storage elsewhere to keep it secure. So those are things to think about, and those are kind of cons for why motorhomes are not as easy to have as camper vans on some occasion. Okay, Let's flip this. Let's look at the pros of campervans over motorhomes. So we've mentioned some of the big reasons that people choose campervans, and those are all totally valid. So let's just recap them. Often the price is better, often storing it is easier, parking it is often easier, and generally the word that came up an awful lot in the group was flexibility. So a lot of people use their campervans as a second vehicle, so they're only paying for perhaps a car and a campervan within the household, rather than most people with a motorhome have 1 or 2 cars, and then the motorhome is specifically the leisure vehicle, whereas a campervan can often be used to just run to the shops. So that's why a lot of people choose to use a campervan for that reason. They also perhaps aren't doing such long trips, so they only want it for day trips or weekend trips, and it has more flexibility for that reason. Also, if you're going to wild camp or stealth camp in the middle of a city, and we are not going to get into the legalities or whatever's going on in Scotland at the moment, but if that's what you want to do, it is easier with a van. There's no two ways about that. You are much less obvious if you have a van than if you have a motorhome and you're parked up either on a street or on a beach or in the middle of nowhere. You are, because you're a smaller vehicle and you're often slightly darker coloured, and you're just easier to camouflage. And it's not quite as obvious that it's a vehicle being used for overnight sleeping if you're a van, especially if it's looking like a white transit van or something like that. You can often get away with camping places that motorhome couldn't or would get moved on from. Another big reason that people choose campers over motorhomes is, of course, they're narrower, so you can get down narrower lanes, and also they often cost less on ferries and on the tunnel. So partly this is due to the height, but also partly down to the length. So it'd be interesting to know a comparison of what, say, a 6-metre motorhome versus a 6-metre campervan cost on a ferry. If you've done that and you have those sort of vehicles, then by all means let us know how much it costs you and we can see what the price difference is, because I don't know, but it would be interesting to do that comparison and see just how much of a difference it is between the two vehicles. Lastly, some people have mentioned that campervans are more economic to drive. Now, I genuinely don't know if that's true or not. I would have thought just the fact that it was a slightly smaller vehicle, better aerodynamics than a motorhome. But of course, I think it's going to depend on the size of your campervan and the size of your motorhome. So I'm not sure we can put that as a sweeping generalisation, but that was a reason that some people looked into better miles per gallon, and they can get more miles for their money from their campervan than they could if they got a motorhome. So of course, being fair, the cons of a camper are, again, pretty much what we've said, but in the other way. So there's generally less space. If you are a couple or a family, you might feel a bit more on top of each other. There's less space to spread out, especially in bad weather when you're all inside the vehicle. There is less payload. Now, many campers aren't rated up to 3.5 tonnes. They're actually rated up to somewhere like 3.3. So you won't get anywhere near as big a payload. And if you don't know what payload is, I will link to the video that explains this all for you. But you won't get anywhere near as big a payload on a campervan as you will on a motorhome, generally speaking. I wonder how many times I've said generally in this video, but I'm hoping you get the gist that I am trying to be sweeping without being sweeping. So that's definitely something to consider, and it's something that can catch you out quite quickly on a camper. Another big reason that people don't choose campervans is they want a toilet and a shower that is comfortable, that's easy to use. A lot of campers now, if they do have a toilet and shower, they have a wet room. If you don't know what a wet room is, it's basically where the shower is inside the bathroom, so the bathroom floor gets wet every time. And even though you've got a curtain, we've got this on our van, we've got a curtain that pulls across, so the toilet area actually stays dry, but the floor of the bathroom stays wet. And it's not a big deal to clean it up or to wipe it all up and dry it all off again. But it can be frustrating, and a lot of people prefer to just have a shower that they can walk out of and it will air dry over time. They don't have to worry about the rest of the bathroom getting wet. Again, personal preference. This is why there are so many makes and models on the market. And I think lastly, and possibly one of the biggest defining things, is of course number of beds, number of seatbelts, and also amount of storage that you can have in a camper. There just isn't the space and the size and the storage, no matter how cleverly they're built, that you will get in a bigger motorhome. So those are a lot of the pros and cons. I hope that that's helped you think about the kind of things that you want to do with your van, what you're going to use it for, and which kind of vehicle might be better for you. Thanks for watching. If you found that helpful, we would love a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more motorhome or camper tips and tricks, then by all means subscribe, hit the little bell to be notified when our next video comes out. And if you are in the market to buy a vehicle, then by all means grab our free buying checklist, which will help you figure out what you need, what you don't need, and what to look for when you're going to buy your motorhome or camper, whichever you choose. And by all means, come and join our Facebook group and let us know in there what you choose, whether you go for a motorhome or a campervan. We would love to know what you go for. Okay, I think that's everything from me now. Thanks for watching. Bye.
We are out. We're talking about a good time. We're chasing every moment, all the good nights. We're always looking out and it's a good